So you have an understanding what autoimmunity is? Autoimmunity is when you have pre-programmed antigen that is causing the body to automatically trigger antibodies because of the surface marker antigen purposely triggering antibodies to attack the body. And also, too, when you're exposed to that variant of a virus, that those antigens are programmed to trigger antibodies to go after, that's when the body produces antibodies to attack the body. Why would it attack the body? Because viruses need a host, and you are the host. And so this is why people don't understand viruses, because they don't understand the mechanism of viruses, and then why the therapeutics can be so deadly to some people. Well, even being exposed to a virus without the therapeutics, if you're not releasing the excess and you're not rebuilding simultaneously, you could trigger autoimmunity because you're exposed to an environment where everyone has some form of a pre-programmed antigen that will reprogram your body. That's why they're looking for 90% immunity in the population, because that's enough people to where someone's going to catch somebody else's pre-programmed antagonistic antibody that is programmed to go after cells that have the specific viral algorithms in the cells. So that's why it's not going to matter if you don't get a vaccine or not. They already have enough people who already bought into the therapeutics. Okay, now it's just a matter of just getting it all rolled out and getting 90 or 80% of the population with the vaccine. But now, if there is 90 or 80% of the population super communicable with that specific pre-programmed antigen that programs your innate and adaptive immune system to then release antibodies when it senses that algorithm in the environment, you're going to be just as immunized as the guy that was vaccinated. That's why the unvaxxed and the vaxxed are the same, because they both are going to be passing along those pre-programmed monoclonal antibodies back and forth to each other. The only difference between the two is if you actually do jelly juice and release the excess and then reprogram your body to create your own antibodies against those invaders and be able to adapt to all the viruses and the variants in the environment. That's the only way your kid's going to survive. That's the only way you're going to survive, is if you actually take control and build up your own biochemical arsenal. If not, someone else is going to be basically using you as a mercenary. That's what I think all of these people who take part in the mass therapeutics, they're mercenaries for the system, because the system needs to level out the playing field. They need to, I guess, get rid of the things that are imbalanced in our society. So if you're not doing jelly juice, you're in the same boat as someone that you may be like, oh, I'm morally against your belief system when it comes to therapeutics. You're no different than they are if you're not doing jelly juice. Okay? So that's why it's so important. You have to understand how important jelly juice is, because of the fact that you're releasing the excess antibodies. You're reprogramming your body back to what it was originally intended before the mass therapeutics and before somebody else's intention to do a search and destroy on viruses, whether it is artificially made in a lab. Because yes, that's what artificial intelligence is when somebody goes and takes different proteins from different viruses and makes them and then conjoins them and docks them together in a stable environment, and they're able to then program tissues and yeast and then also be inserted into a fetus to then have a specific outcome. That fetus can only survive if it's able to adapt to that new environment. If it has all of the right components. Okay, and that is the fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals. That is the biochemistry that makes up who you are. Okay, but if you have an imbalance in that biochemistry, then yeah, you're going to see weird manifestations in the population as well as in your body. You're going to see imbalances, criminal behavior. You're going to see so much, cancer, disease, and chronic illness because you have so many people who are malnourished or so many people that are so imbalanced. You're going to see kids, grow up deficient because they haven't been able to address those anomalies that was passed down to them by their predecessors. Because remember, reproduction comes from imbalances in the microbiome, and then a baby, a child, is then a representation of mitigating against extinction because of those imbalances. And you can say, oh my God, that's so horrible, but that is what reproduction is. Now you can have, that's meiosis. Then you have mitosis, where you are lengthening your telomeres, simultaneously taking on the new environment. See, what happens is viruses can lengthen your telomeres if it's able to have a good support system around it. But viruses can also shorten telomeres if the body is actively cannibalizing itself because it doesn't have enough of what it needs to be able to handle that evolutionary process, that biomolecular thermodynamics. So, there's definitely several different campaigns going on. Okay, so those that are not vaxxed and they're staying at home, but they've still been exposed to the COVID, and they don't even know if it's the COVID or if it's the therapeutics that's causing whatever. See, people don't even know really what's going on. Their body's so at war with itself that it's insane. And that's probably why the extreme aggressive behaviors and the extremism in the population, because people are so imbalanced, because there is a microcosmic war that they don't even know who the good guy and who the bad guy is anymore. They're so confused because they're being used as mercenaries. They're trying to fight for their own life, and they're getting deluged by so much information and so much stress and so much fear, or they're like putting their head in the sand and pretending nothing exists. And so, even denial, is going to work against a person. So, yeah, so autoimmunity, if you have an autoimmune disorder, whether it's diabetes, whether it's lupus, whether it's MS, that's because your innate and your adaptive immune system have been programmed to attack itself based upon the environment. And you got surface marker antigen in your body, which is based on your blood type, swimming around, basically playing pinball with all of your systems. So then you have all these antibodies swimming around. And then when you get exposed to that specific trigger, because antigen triggers antibodies, but how does that antigen get programmed? It's based upon taking samples from the population. How does a drug sniffing dog know what kind of, know who to sniff out? It has to be programmed to sniff out the specific drugs or the bodies, the corpses, or whatever it's supposed to go and find. Okay? So antigen is like a drug sniffing dog. It is a type of trigger that is used to do a search and potentially destroy or ferret out, whatever the case may be. So remember, our bodies are like computers. So that's why Bill Gates is so appropriate for the mass therapeutics, because he understands computers, algorithms, frequencies, energy, no different than the operating system, the CPU, all the different uploadable applications. So, so Bill Gates understands the software, and then Apple understands the application. And then you have Dell and, Lenovo or whatever that understands the hardware, like your skeleton. And then they all kind of work together and try to be a little bit compatible. And then, oh God, then they have new programs they got to upload. Just like a virus, just like, Longhorn or different operating systems that Microsoft rolls out every so often. I remember working in shadowing someone that's in Microsoft that was trying to implementing. He was embedded in a huge company in Chevron out there in Pleasant Hill, California. And he was trying to install and help them transition to Longhorn or whatever the latest operating system was. And, it took a while. All the different enterprise level to the service level all had to be on board and compatible, and the whole business process had to be re-engineered to factor in the new operating system. Well, that's no different than a virus. Okay, a virus is like a new operating system on a body, on a device that may or may not be prepared for the new operating system. So yeah, when he was trying to implement that system, there was always little glitches here. This department wasn't on board or had issues with their systems and communication and personnel. And so it's working with so many moving parts. So yeah, Bill Gates knows. And then you have, Apple and all the different, whatever. And then you have all these different applications that then get uploaded onto an operating system. Okay. And then you have the maintenance, and you have the spy bot search and destroy to destroy viruses from old information that's not compatible with the new information. No different than the antibodies are spy bot search and destroy, sniffing out the algorithms of a specific old world. And right now you're seeing the old world fall away and the new world come into order. Okay, no different than when you're dealing with antibodies that are out with the old, in with the new, or the viruses out with the old, in with the new, inducing autophagy, an autophagic evolution. And so, what's going on with the viruses and this whole thing in our environment is no different than Microsoft going in and embedding themselves into a huge corporation and installing a new operating system and then getting every single component on board to where everything is connected. Cross-functional communication between all the functional silos. And that is a change management process. That's what organizational development, major is in adult education as well as, college. I had that as a major. I didn't graduate college or I didn't get a degree, but I did study the business process reengineering. I did study some components of change management. I did study how, computer systems integrate in with corporations and all the different components that need to be factored in to make sure it's a smooth running process where the micro and the macro are totally compatible. Okay. So, I have a little background in this, and so it's easy to transfer it to a human body. And then now you're looking at how the viruses are impacting people, which is basically a new operating system that most of you are not ready for. So, yeah. And so no different than when you upload, antivirus or spy bot search and destroy, on your computer. That's exactly what these therapeutics are doing. It's actually pretty wild when you think about the connections between software, hardware, and the human body and biotechnology. That's why they call it biotechnology, biological technology. There's a reason behind these words that are called portmanteau, where they connect two compartmentalized contexts and they act as if they're one because they are one. All right, bye.